Hey my friends, if you're here, you probably already know that I miscarried at 12 weeks. I wanted to share some of my experience with the grief that I felt, in particular because it took me really by surprise. Not only was I surprised by losing my baby that far along, but I was surprised by how heavy that grief felt. We have one child already who's 2.5. I also have a big daughter who is a teenager now, my beautiful stepdaughter who is with us a few days a month. But life is full. Life is full with a toddler. And I had gone through several weeks of that second pregnancy, wondering when I would feel that connection to this baby, and I assumed it was because I wasn't going slowly enough to really cultivate the kind of connection I felt that I had with Layla when I was pregnant with her 2.5 and 3 years ago. Just because life was slow and delicious, and I was really focused on being healthy and keeping the baby and worrying about keeping the baby and worrying about if I was doing everything right. And ultimately it doesn't really matter if you do it perfectly. Miscarriages happen, and it's not a fault-based thing. But nevertheless, I was curious about what it would feel like. I was curious about if my heart would keep up with being so huge. The amount of love that I felt bringing Layla into the world was so overpowering and overwhelming, frankly, that I wondered if that same amount of love would double or expand exponentially, and what that would feel like, and could I even handle it? Would it happen for me? Waxing philosophical a lot of the time, I wondered if I would feel more connected when I could feel those little feet kicking. But beyond the questionings and the whens and the what ifs, I didn't feel that sense of grasping and connection that I had with my first, and I chalked that up to being full, full timing with a toddler. So the grief hit me like a ton of bricks. I wasn't ready for it. I didn't think that there would be as much of a grieving process as there was. It was so heavy those first 2 weeks. It's been maybe 4.5 weeks now since I miscarried that baby. But the first 2 weeks were so heavy and difficult. I was doing my best to carve out extra time to rest and sleep when we do go through something painful or that requires more energy to digest, because it puts out a lot more emotion than we're able to easily handle. It's normal to need more rest and more sleep. Our brains actually go through a process while we sleep where glial cells, doesn't matter if you remember their name, but they clean up plaquey buildup in the brain and help us digest content, help root out old patterns, beliefs, thoughts that we're trying to change or just get rid of. They're like the garbage people or the gardeners. They take out stuff we don't need, don't want, and just clean things up for us. So as you're digesting emotion, you do need more time to sleep and rest. And that can be really difficult if you have a full life with, other responsibilities. Maybe you're working, maybe you have 1 or 2 or 10 children, or family members that need you, or whatever you have going on. It's normal to need more rest. I was surprised and disheartened by how little I was able to give to my 2.5-year-old during that time. She certainly felt what I was going through, and she was certainly acting like it and needing more and throwing more tantrums. And that was really difficult when you feel that stretched thin with your own emotional difficulties. We hadn't used sitters or nannies in the past. It wasn't something that we felt comfortable with before our daughter could really speak to us and tell us who she liked or what she liked doing. We didn't want to leave her with anyone else, and we don't have a ton of family members that have off time during the day. So, but after the miscarriage, we did call in help from a sitter that we had used, just to give me some time to go lay in bed and feel the emotions and not get too wrapped up in the stories about what this meant about me as a person or a mother, or whether or not I deserved this baby. A lot of us get stuck in emotional patterns because we're telling ourselves just the shittiest stories. And when you're down, it's harder to quiet that mean voice that some of us carry. Some of that older programming that we've been trying to navigate away from and change. And you will. But it does come up. It makes life a little more difficult, or a lot more difficult. But being able to take rest and take space when you can. Everyone's life is different, but do carve out pockets for yourself to grieve, especially if there's even one other person that you trust to pick up the slack. Let yourself have a break, and if you are really in a tight spot, give yourself a yoga nidra before bed so that you can at least get into a brainwave state that's going to really support your healing. If you're depressed, you might have insomnia. Following an audio track like a yoga nidra or a non-sleep deep rest will, at least if you're able to track it mentally, you'll be able to get the benefits, get more benefits than you would if you weren't using it. I felt a lot of my healing come from talking to some people about it. It's not the easiest thing to talk about. A lot of our friends and family already knew. It was our second child, so we didn't keep it a secret. We just kind of let her rip. I knew at 4 weeks that I was carrying, so we told the people that we care about, and in the end, that felt really supportive to know that people, although I might have to bear them really sad news, they were going to reach out and they were going to support me as best they can. And that can be a lot of different ways. Sometimes it's one text message once, and sometimes it's an everyday phone call. I received tremendous support from my midwife, who gave me the biggest hug when I walked in, told me her miscarriage story, heard mine. She's very receptive to the fact that I feel more comfortable with alternative medicine, although she does work for our local hospital. The next person I went to was a nurse practitioner. I needed a shot, and she must have spent 30 minutes of her day with me to give a 30-second shot. Like, it could have been an in and out. But I cried, and she hugged me, and she told me her story. And the healing thing about talking about it is you find other people that have gone through similar things. And when you don't allow that sadness or shame or whatever you're feeling to hide in the dark alone, and you bring it to the surface and you share it, many times you will find receptive people and helpers and earth angels, just to give you a hug, let you know that you weren't alone in it, you weren't the only one who has experienced it, and that you do get better. And there is more coming. This isn't the end of the story. And ultimately, this chapter that you're writing is up to you. It's however you choose to write it. If you're in the throes of grief right now, give yourself time. You don't need to reprocess it any particular way. Just go slowly and gently with yourself. That's the advice I would have given to me, and what ultimately ended up working. So if you are in your grief right now, my heart goes out to you. Feel how you feel. Quiet the story mind. There's no story that's going to be particularly helpful unless you happen to be really good at reframes. And the healing is coming, and the grief is going to move. Just give yourself little pockets of time to feel it. It'll go on its own. We feel our emotions. Emotions are energy in motion, and they continue in motion and process out of us. As long as we give them the opportunity to be felt, they do move along, even if they're slow. So, I love you. I'll catch up with you in the next video. If you are going through a tough time, you can write it in your journal. You can write to me in the comments. I'll do my best to respond. And you're going to move through this. You're so loved. And we'll talk soon.